Oh, the one we've done is just about.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Sorell Planning Authority meeting on 6th of August 2024. Opening the meeting with, are there any apologies for absence? Charles will be going to late. Confirmation of the minutes, the 18th of June 2024, the recommendation that the minutes of the Sorell Planning Authority SPA meeting held on the 18th of June be confirmed. Can I have a move of this, please? Councillor Reid, Councillor Redney. All those in favour? Unanimous. Do we have any declarations of pecuniary interest? Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. I'd like to note that I have a non-pecuniary interest in the application before us because if the application is approved, it could trigger conveyancing work. I want to disclose that I'm an owner of a conveyancing business. However, I'll remain in the room for this application as the potential benefit to myself is hypothetical and does not influence my ability to remain impartial. Also, I'd like to rely on the exemption under section 52(2)(c) of the Local Government Act. I am committed to applying the Tasmanian planning scheme objectively and ensuring that my decision is made with an unbiased mind.
Right. In considering the following land use planning matters, the Sorell Planning Authority intends to act as a planning authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993. Point 5, land use planning. 5.1, subdivision application DA 2023/9/1. 8 lots, proposal on 8 lot subdivision in Denali. Can I have a look at this, please? Councillor Larkins and discussions, please.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. Do you mind if I just reel them off? Yeah, thank you. In the report, it references that the stormwater is discharged to a lawful point of discharge. Through the Mayor, Shane, can you please explain where the liability ends for the applicant? And is it at the culvert that goes under the highway, or does the applicant need to consider where the water flows from that culvert?
Through the Mayor, so the culverts under the highway drain to the natural watercourses. So there's a natural right to drain that way and to convey the water. The application is assessed on the basis that it doesn't, it should not have an adverse effect downstream the network, but that's through works within their own subject site. So the table drains, the recommended check drains are provisions to ensure that what is generated off-site doesn't increase the pre-development flows.
Thank you. Next question is regarding the easement. over the property at 2 Ryan's Lane, which is sort of answered, but it leads to a dam, but there's no easement from the dam to the bay, which my understanding is that it's because it's following the natural water course.
That's correct. So, sitting on the screen, the two easements that are shown, they both correspond to natural water courses. It is unusual that easements apply to a natural water course. It's not common, it's not strictly necessary in any way. But those two water courses have been effectively the conveyance channel for the Arthur Highway since that road was installed. So those water courses have been there for many decades. And as a natural water course, there's a right, effectively a right for State Road to convey the water from the road through those channels. And that extends to the ability of the applicant to drain their water into the State Road network using those natural water courses.
Cool. Thank you. And one more. And to mitigate, so for the applicant to mitigate flooding where the access to lots 1, 2 and 3 are located, I believe that the driveway accesses will be built up.
So through the mayor, there's a relatively minor degree of flooding that's been modelled by council in the stormwater system management plan, as you see on the image. So generally speaking, that flooding is contained within the state road reservation. It's just some small sections representing private land. So they'll be designed in a way where they can't restrict that overland flow path. And more on the scenario that would be takings by the time you put a base and elevate the accesses, they'll be above that level. So that's roughly 100 mil.
Yeah, thank you. And last one, as per page 3 on the stormwater report, for the subdivided lots, it's estimated that there'll be 300 metres square of roof and hard stand will be created for each lot, and drainage to absorption trenches. The absorption trenches, we won't see anything in relation to that until like a building permit has been applied. Is that how that works? If they're applicable then?
Yeah, through the mayor. So those absorption trenches that will be necessary for any house or outbuilding, they'll be designed at the time of the future house. So outbuilding, it's plumbing work, so it requires a specific custom design, a bit like a on-site wastewater system. You go through a plumbing process. So that'll all be captured at the plumbing and building stage.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I've got one. Through the chair, can you guarantee the adequacy of the drainage solutions will mitigate the downstream flooding? And are these gold standards as far as drainage is concerned, or is this just normal sort of stuff?
No, this is fairly standard. The outcome is that the post-development flows are managed in a way to not exceed the flows that exist today.
Right, okay.
So that's to be achieved in this case through the table drains. The table drains will need check drains, or just little elevated platforms to slow the water down to reduce the velocity. A few other pretty standard design measures. But yeah, what the condition, the recommended condition for saying is that the development must manage the runoff from the road in a way that doesn't increase above what there is today.
Right, okay. Thank you.
More questions, Councillor Reynolds?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I had similar questions, which was in regards to the stormwater, which was what was, to explain a bit further, how the volume and the speed or velocity of the water was going to be minimised going across to the neighbour's property. But is there any potential for forward planning, because we've got the 8-lot subdivision here in front of us, but with potential further growth, can more be done now at this stage for that future growth, or do we have to just view from what's on today's agenda for us?
The decision today is really just a planning application, that 8 lots. In terms of other future planning, so that there is provision in Council's long-term financial plan for footpath along the upper highway, which is running through this area. On the stormwater side of things, so council doesn't have any assets in this area. Stormwater is roadside table drains, and state roads, culverts. So, in a stormwater sense, there's perhaps not a lot of forward planning that we need to do. There's a little bit of extra subdivision potential, but they'll be similar sized lots. So most of the stormwater is managed on site through rainwater tanks and absorption trenches. And it's just then a case of the developer coming up with a solution as to how they're going to manage their road runoff, which will be table drains, and we just need to look at are those table drains the right size, what's their asset they are, do they need any velocity reduction, which is what is needed in this case. It's just like that watered down, but it's all, yeah, fairly steady and achievable.
Thank you.
Councillor Meredith.
Thank you. A question for Mr. Wells, please. Following up on the issue of stormwater, it seems that some of the solutions are drainage trench, and so pretty much soaking the water into the soil. And so the question is, that's managing on-site on that subdivision area and on the lots. But when water soaks on a downstream, it comes out again downstream. I know because I'm down the hill from residential area that soaks water, and I get it on my property. And so the question is, although that drainage trench solution, for example, fixes the problem in the subdivision, it doesn't fix it for the downstream neighbors. So what is the solution for that, or what's the assessment for that?
Through the mayor, I'm not, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure how to answer that. I'm not sure I fully understand that question. We have what the subdivision is doing is going to end up capturing some of that otherwise natural runoff and then concentrating that. And so we need to make sure that it's concentrated off the road and off the buildings, doesn't cause any erosion or water quality issues. But in terms of what's soaking in the ground, I think with or without the subdivision, that correct me if I'm wrong, but that doesn't change. It's still runoff, rain hitting the ground and being absorbed.
There will be 8 properties in there that will be generating extra water, not just stormwater, but extra water. So when soakage trenches are usually near or around or downhill from water tanks and roofs and things like that. So yes, there is the natural stormwater, but there's also what the properties generate that gets soaked. So
it's an unreticulated area, so future residents aren't they're not taking water from a reticulated supply and having to dispose of it or manage it on site. They've purely got to capture
Okay.
runoff for their own drinking purposes and domestic purposes. And the trenches are there to manage any overflow from the rainwater tank strata required. And in terms of the quality side from the road runoff, the applicant has provided a music model, slate model, given rain events, given catchment characteristics. If you install a table drain, this is what they've proposed here. On average, you will get X percentage reductions in phosphorus and nitrogen and suspended solids. And there's the state stormwater strategy has some targets about how much a design should attempt to achieve in terms of reducing those nitrogen, phosphorus and solid levels, and that's been achieved in their preliminary work, and it just needs to be confirmed as per normal through the detailed engineering design drawings later on.
Councillor Nichols.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, the access road off the Arthur Highway, is there any provision or plan for a dedicated turning lane once there's, increased traffic in that area?
So the TIA references a BAR term, which is a minor narrowing of the road, so to accommodate a right turn vehicle. So there is, that's not reflected on the design we just had, but that is a recommendation. So there will be some road widenings,
Right.
so that for southbound car is choosing to turn right,
Right.
the vehicles will be able to go around on the left-hand side.
Okay. And then with the other two accesses, will that bar facility be extended across those as well for lots 1, 2 and 3?
No, it's roughly 60 metres either side of the new road junction.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, a bit of, I suppose, context in terms of the Dunalley structure plan and a reference in the development application to keeping in similar with, in kind with similar developments in the area, or words to that effect. At the moment, it looks, it's separate to the rest of the township to some extent, and then there's vacant land either side, or larger allotments either side. What, I was just curious as to how this area, what the structure plan says about this area and what the edge of the developable, part of the township is.
Yep.
An example.
Image in the report.
Thank you.
Prior to the structure plan, this site and the surrounding area was in a rural zoning, so it wasn't allocated for residential purposes.
Yep.
So from recollection, everything really northeast of the recreation grounds, there's not bush on that image, was rural.
Okay.
Previously, the structure plan recommended the rural living zone to be extended. I think largely because, well, one, the boundary was the original town boundary. And there's as you say, there's a great mix of lot sizes throughout Denali. There's small lots, relatively large lots, so it's a bit of a mix. So I think the purpose of the structure plan was to provide some additional land supply. Generally, though, containing towards the original sort of boundaries of Denali.
Which extends to the north of where this development is. Is that right?
Yeah, if you can see on that image, there's a boundary between pasture and bush, just got the water, through there,
I see.
so that's as far as the rural living zone goes to.
Thank you.
Anything else? Councillor Alexander?
Thank you. I have a question from Mr. Wells as well about amenity. So with all the research I've done and visiting the site as well in 2 occasions, in rereading the planning scheme. The planning scheme starts by saying that the whole purpose of the scheme is to, manage or provide or manage and make sure that amenity is, not lost, and it's there for the proponents, but also for the existing development. So my question about amenity is in regards to the neighbors down the hill, across from the road. So when I visited with Councillor Reid as well, we heard how the neighbor across is working towards changing the property into an agricultural property, part of it, which is sort of the area that receives part of the stormwater and that has the dam. So one of the concerns to that was what was going to happen to that development as developing as an agricultural land, especially if it's they're looking to get an organic, specialized sort of primary industry there. And so there is that concern, and I would like to know what are your views about that. And I couldn't find here anything about the loss of amenity and what that means for the neighbors downstream. So the concern is the quality of the water, the amount of water, the erosion, and yeah.
So through the mayor, so the applicant's stormwater assessment and which is ultimately supported by the recommended conditions is going to create a situation where the runoff from this site is of no change to what today's condition is. So post-development will match pre-development. That's in terms of both the amount of runoff, the velocity of the runoff, and the quality of the runoff. So that's all we can really ask any applicant to do, is to not make any demonstrative changes to what there is already today. In terms of the question around organic farming, I don't have a particular view on that. My comment would be these properties, the properties downstream and east and west of the subject site are all zoned for residential purposes. That's what the zoning's for. Agriculture can occur, obviously, in a rural living zone, but it's not the primary purpose of the zone. So it's somewhat difficult to have regard to individuals' intents or otherwise to have some particular agricultural enterprise. The scheme is limited to saying this is a residential area, 1 hectare lots is what we say is an acceptable development outcome, and then we have our own stormwater policy that really looks to manage the impacts of development. Our development's going to have impacts, but we're saying that the post-development does not exceed the pre-development. That's a pretty common and standard approach across the country.
May I ask a follow-up question? So asking for the same amount of water, the same velocity and the same quality, is this a standard thing that's asked, or this is something special that's been asked here?
No, it's a standard approach. Particularly, as I'm sure you can appreciate, most areas of the council, the stormwater infrastructure that exists is minimal. We're undersized, so the starting point that we try and look at is that whatever development happens doesn't make existing situations worse off than what they may or may not be. So that's a common approach that any council will have when there's natural constraints on stormwater infrastructure.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Reynolds?
Sorry,
After you.
Councillor Trace. Shane, I just want to take an extract out of one of the representations here where it says, I further emphasise that my client does not accept the discharge of stormwater over his land from this proposed development. Can you respond to that? And is there any legal terms that they can reject that stormwater runoff from the development?
What I can say is, so that representation and the whole report was reviewed by our solicitors. Were supportive of what's been drafted and what's been recommended. My understanding is that a natural water course is a natural water course. It will receive water. I don't know what anyone can do about that. If someone's developing, then we're saying that as you develop that land, you manage the amount of runoff and the quality of the runoff in a way that doesn't exceed the situation. That's all we can really do. And like I said, it's a pretty common approach across the country.
And just leading on to that, I've noted that the bottom dam in particular has already got some land erosion below it where it goes into the watercourse. Who becomes liable if that dam fails and if there's further erosion? Does that become council or?
Look, it's difficult for me to answer on record. I can't tell you if that dam has approval from council or has approval from the state government. Most on in-stream dams do require an approval from the state government, and they have various standards and conditions associated with that. If there was a failure of the dam, beyond what I'm about to ask you, would consider it may or may not be reliable for that.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Trace?
Yeah, you just about beat me to it. I was thinking of liability too. I will say it was an extensive stormwater assessment in the report. But if that stormwater exceeds capacity, you're saying that showing that things aren't. It shouldn't from this development, but if it does, and these things do happen, is the developer then responsible to mitigate at all, to try and rectify any
These questions are difficult to answer because there are the hypothetical kind of scenarios and all we can do now is focus on what is actually proposed and how do we assess that in a normal way. So we say your table drains are sufficient to cater for this. We can control velocity, we can manage this quantity, we can manage the quality, and that's a bunch of engineering standards that are commonly applied. There's one thing to bear in mind is that the engineering approaches, they are designed for certain rainfall events. So they're not designed to cater for a deluge that's every 200 years or something along those lines. So the core infrastructure is designed for a 1 in 20 rainfall event, so a pretty significant rainfall event. And then we design that when we look at an overland flow, so when those 1 in 20 rainfall events greater than those happen and the pipe networks or table drains are exceeded, we then look at an overland flow path, a flood path, up to a 100-year design interval. And beyond that, the engineer's going to try and design for those bigger events like that. So, it's to think here that, we won't get some catastrophic rainfall event that could do all sorts of damage to all sorts of properties everywhere. Like we can't control that. We can just look at what we have now and apply the standards that are commonly applied.
I think council has been in a situation where we've had to go back and remedy certain developments where stormwater has exceeded the capacity. So it's probably not a hypothetical question, but it does happen, and I suppose I'm just wondering where the liability lies. Whether, as I said, is the developer then supposed to go back and try and mitigate the situation, or does council have to step in?
Through the mayor or state growth, I mean, the stormwater doesn't rely on state growth's infrastructure. It's their culverts. They're consented to the application, but they also need to consent to the work, so the future design and detailed engineering design will be approved by them. In terms of other sites, there have been several where councils ultimately had to spend its own money to fix things respectively. That's to avoid those situations. That's why we've ramped up the amount of work that developers must do at this stage. That's why we have stormwater new development policy. That's why we have the flood modelling as well. Those situations do happen, but they generally happen when there's not enough thought given at this particular stage.
Certainly a lot of thought went into the assessment. I will certainly admit that. So let's hope it works.
Anybody else? No? In which case then, can those in favour of the recommendation to approve this development with the listed conditions, please show their hands. All those against? In which case the recommendation has been approved. That brings us to the close of the meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Disgraceful, I'm afraid. Really disappointing.